Hello and welcome to the Beckoning Bookshelf. I'm your host, Jeffrey Ashcraft. Are miracles real? Could all those stories in the Bible about miracles and miraculous events actually happen? And not just then, but today? Well, with Easter right around the corner, now's a great time to talk about miracles. Miracles, a preliminary study, is a book that was written by C.S. Lewis and initially published in 1947, and it has been republished since. This one here is a HarperCollins paperback edition that was first published in 2001. The book was also revised in 1960 after Elizabeth Anscombe, a British analytic philosopher, essentially argued that Lewis incorrectly presented all thought as irrational, unless it was somehow connected to a source outside of nature. So Lewis revised the chapter in which he primarily discusses rational thought, which I believe was chapter 3, if I remember right, and further provides a distinction between irrational and non-rational thought. And that was the main revision that happened in 1960, as at least how I understood it. So what is this book about? I've always kind of wondered that. And I know, it's titled Miracles. Well, it's about miracles. Well, yeah, but what about miracles? Well, in this book, Lewis decided to tackle the question as to whether or not miracles are real, if they actually happen. And that is the entire book. All 270 pages are focused on that seemingly simple question that most of us would merely answer yes or no to and move on with our lives. And I don't say that to make light or fun of Lewis or the book. It just demonstrates how thorough and deep Lewis goes into the topic. I mean, on page 60, Lewis says that we are, quote, almost ready to begin our main argument, close quote. Almost? We've already read 60 pages and we're still not ready for it? After this, Lewis first needs to clear some possible misgivings and misunderstandings before we reach the main argument still. Now, before I talk a little bit more about the book itself, reading this actually reminded me of a lecture I attended a few years back given by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, where he spent 45 minutes examining and dissecting another seemingly simple question that we often do not give much thought. That question was, do you believe in God? He spent 45 minutes discussing the real depth and meaning to that question. And his logic and approach are very similar to Lewis's logic and approach here in this book towards the existence of miracles. And I realized that Jordan Peterson could easily be comparable to C.S. Lewis in terms of intelligence. We often laud Lewis and other historical figures for being brilliant. However, we sometimes forget that there are people today who are just as intelligent. And that was quite an inspiring thought, quite a positive thought. I really liked it. So, back to the book. So, what is the main argument that Lewis presents that we have to wait so long for? Well, essentially, Lewis suggests that miracles not only exist, but they are even likely, given the proper circumstances, and that the birth of Jesus Christ is the grand miracle that connects them all. So, how does Lewis reach that conclusion? Well, I'm not going to cover everything, but I'll just kind of summarize a few key points. Well, first off, we have to define what a miracle is. According to Lewis, a miracle is, quote, an interference with nature by supernatural power, close quote. And I think that's a really good way to put it. In other words, it is an event that cannot happen in nature alone, like the sun suddenly rising from the west or pigs suddenly gaining the ability to fly. These events could not occur naturally and would require some other power outside of nature. Lewis then proceeds to provide arguments as to how the supernatural can exist outside of nature and interact with it in such a way as to create what we view as miracles. And Lewis does all of this, by the way, with his signature intelligence and wit. His arguments are relatable, they're deep, and they're easy to follow, and all of this is done with a touch of levity and humor. I particularly enjoyed when he compared our attempts to comprehend God as a limpet trying to comprehend man. A sage limpet is graced with a vision of man, and he tries to explain what he saw to the other limpets, and they have trouble wrapping their brains around what the sage limpet saw and is trying to describe. It honestly sounds like a Pixar short. It really does. Well, some of the arguments that Lewis provides towards the existence of the supernatural is actually our ability to reason and our sense of morality. A naturalist, those who believe that nature is all there is and there is no supernatural force, they suggest that our thoughts are, and our very beings, are merely random events occurring in and from nature. That there isn't anything more to our thoughts than some molecules knocking together or some electric pulse passing through our brains. And that is I'm grossly simplifying all of that, but it pretty much summarizes the naturalist view. Lewis puts it much better here. I'm going to say that right now. However, if that were the case, then how can our thoughts hold any true value or weight if they really are just random natural events? As Lewis put it in Mere Christianity, if God doesn't exist and the universe has no meaning, then we were never meant to figure that out. Now, do I agree with Lewis's argument here that miracles actually are possible and do and can happen? Well, yes. In fact, I'd actually like to take Lewis's suggestion a step further, which is where I want to talk about the book's title. The full title of this book is Miracles, a Preliminary Study. It's a preliminary study. That means it is preceding something more complete. Lewis intentionally called the book a preliminary study because it is not an exhaustive or complete work on the existence of miracles. He never actually provides any concrete evidence for his argument. But where will this more complete study come from? Well, it will come from us. We can complete the study. Lewis provides a perfect foundation for us to start from. And what I'm going to add to Lewis's argument is that miracles are not only possible, but that they happen today to all of us. I mean, if God really did cause miracles in the time of the Bible, why would he not do so today? I believe that God interacts with us daily, but the miracles in our lives are not the grand miracles that we read about in the Bible. They are smaller events that are easily missed that just make our lives better. And Easter, a time that we celebrate one of the greatest of all miracles, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, is a great time to look for and reflect on the miracles in our own lives because they are there. We can see the hand of God supporting us every day, and we can show our gratitude to Him for the various miracles that He sends to us on a daily basis. And that is all I have for you today. Have you read Miracles, a Preliminary Study? If you have, what do you think of it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? If you could complete the study, how would you do so? And I hope you have a good Easter. Thank you for being here. Thank you always for being here. You are amazing. Now go find yourself a good book.